In this tutorial, I'm going to teach you how I created this beautiful interior scene in Blender. We'll learn things like how to take an existing image and solve the camera and focal length to bring into Blender. We'll go through some modeling, some lighting, how to place assets, and hopefully at the end you'll have this beautiful project you can add to your portfolio. So I hope you enjoy this video, and with that, let's get into it. Okay, we're going to get started on this project. So the very first step that we're going to do is we're going to grab our reference image, and then we're going to use a free program called fSpy to get the position of the camera and the focal lengths and all that, and then we're going to be able to bring that into Blender to then match it and create that scene. So what I have is I've got this reference image. I'll pull over here. You can see it's pretty similar to the render I put on the screen now, which is kind of the final result of this project. So once you have fSpy, you can just go search fSpy. You can download and install it. All you're going to do is open it up, and then we're going to drag in that image. Just drag it wherever you have it stored and place it here. And then this is a super quick process. Basically what we need to do is tell it where the vanishing lines are so that it can create the camera position and the focal length of the camera as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to line up this red axis here coming along the front edge of the desk. Longer lines are better. If you do short lines, there's going to be potentially more air. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to also grab this one, and we're going to do this top edge of this piece right here, just like so. And if you hold shift, it gives you a little zoomed in magnifying glass. And then now what I want to do is I need perpendicular lines to this. I don't see a ton. You know, there's this one right here going front to back, but there are a lot of verticals. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab this for each of these, and we're going to set them here. We're going to do the same one. I like this long edge right here, just like that. Okay, and now you get this grid coordinate popped up, which basically means it's tracking. Now, I basically want to flip all this. I'm going to change the red to be -x because I always want my x to be facing to the right. And then right now it's thinking that the Y is green, so I'm going to change that green to be a Z, and I'm also going to change it to -Z. And so now this is the coordinate system I'm used to using in Blender, where X is going to the right, Z is going up, and then Y is going into the screen. I know Cinema 4D and other places are different, but this is just what I'm used to. So then I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to turn on this XY grid floor, and then basically what I can do is if you just bring this around to your edges, you know, you can basically see that kind of wherever I take this, it's lining up with the lines in our scene. And it's not going to be perfect. You can spend a lot of time tweaking this, but basically if I bring this down here, you can see how it kind of lines up with that. It lines up with the bottom edge of that desk. So I'm just going to put this until this edge right here meets up with the bottom of the baseboard, and this is just going to kind of be the floor of our scene when we bring it into Blender. And that is basically it. This is going to calculate all the way over here. You can go through this. You can see if I set it to, you know, degree, field of view. There's a way that you can do it as the millimeters, like the focal length. Yeah, here, turn this on, and then you can say it's going to set a value of your focal length. So now all you got to do is just save, file, save as, save this somewhere on your computer, and then once you do that, you're going to be able to then jump into Blender and then bring that in. So let's jump over to Blender. Now that we're in Blender, I'm in Blender 4.3.2. This is kind of my base startup scene. I basically just have a camera with a empty and I'm actually going to do this real quick. Let's go ahead and grab our camera and do Alt-P. I'm going to clear this. For you, you probably won't have to do this. I'm just kind of setting my base scene up here. I have this as the depth of field for this camera. So if I go over here and turn on my depth of field, it's already set. And then we're going to basically match this camera's position and the location and rotation from fSpy. So we just finished our fSpy location and focal length solving. So if you do F4 and then import an fSpy, I know where I've saved that, so I'm just going to grab that fSpy file that I saved, and then bam. That's going to bring this up, and so what I'm going to do now is just kind of set up a little bit of a working area. I'm going to change this to just be my 3D viewport. I'm going to drop this down, and then I'm going to turn off T, and I might turn off, you have to leave the overlay so that you can kind of see your image, and then I'm in solid mode, and then I'm going to probably put this in X-ray as well once we get to that point. And then this one I usually leave as like a shader editor. Okay, now this is the basic setup. The first thing I want to do is this camera, we could do it multiple different ways. You could just use the fSpy camera, go over here to your depth of field and set that. So let's leave this the way it is for now, but know that I'm probably going to come back and change this. So I'm going to hide that. And then the first thing we're going to do now is we're going to kind of set up the base scene. So I'm going to go over here and call this the environment. So that's going to be like the walls and the ceiling and stuff, the floor. And then, I would also probably make a collection over here called props. And so that would be like where we start putting things in just to kind of keep everything tidy. And then lights, camera, action for my camera. Okay, let's go in the environment and then let's start modeling to this reference image. So if I add in a mesh plane, you can see that it's going to be right here at the bottom of our screen because that's where we put the floor in fSpy. I'm just going to scale this up till it meets that baseboard. And then I'm gonna do SX to just scale this out like that. And then grab this edge, EZ, bring that up all the way. And now you have your wall and floor. And so we're gonna go through and add materials and all that stuff later. Okay, now what I wanna do is let's start modeling out this desk. So then I'm just gonna do Shift A, add in a mesh cube. I'm just gonna bring this back because I know it's gonna basically be meeting up against the wall. So I'm just gonna bring this to this point right here. And then I will say that there is some difficulty in, because we're in this viewport, if you bring this front face out, so just to show you, I'm gonna grab this, do GZ, and just kind of make this a desk thickness. I wanna basically line it up to that area, and if I make this super wide, I can basically match it up. But then, if you really look, that is not how thick this desk actually is. So if there's a better way to do this, I'm not sure. But basically what I'm doing is I'm using, just basically looking at the scene and saying, okay, how thick would a desk be that's going to be that thick? So then I'm going to go to the top. I'm just going to GY and bring this back out to something about like that. And now I'm going to bring this to roughly what I would think a desk height is. Something like that right there. And that looks pretty good. It might even be thicker. Let's go GY, because I know that if I bring this here, I'm going to basically have to bring this up. Something like that. And we can always tweak this as we go along, but if I bring this edge out, I'm just kind of getting a rough idea of where this goes. Okay, let's do this for now, and then we can always go back and tweak it if we need to. So I'm lining up this top edge you can see here, and it looks like I need to bring the bottom face down a little bit. So I'm going to do GZ and bring that over. I'm going to grab this plane over here. I'm pressing 3 to go into face select mode, and then I'm just going to GX to bring that back. And you can see we don't have a perfect lineup, but it doesn't really have to be perfect. So I'm just going to do that right there. And then we're going to bring this face over just all the way out here as well, kind of make a desk. And then I'm going to right click and then set the origin to the geometry. And then we're going to do Shift D. I'm going to rotate it, then use Control to snap. And then basically what I want to do is get this edge over here. So I'm going to do GX, bring this over. In edit mode, I'm just going to do GZ, bring that right above the floor. And then grab this one. GZ, bring it down right here. So that's perfect. And then we're going to do that same piece over on the left. So just Shift D, X, and then I'm just going to zoom in. It should be a little easier for you on your screen to see. I know it can be difficult in watching a YouTube stream with compression and everything, but that looks pretty good. I'm actually going to scale this along its individual origin along the X. I want this panel to be a little bit smaller. Just making sure that it's lining up with both of those. That looks good. Okay, then we can create this desk drawer, and then also I'm going to open this up as an image editor, and then I'm just going to navigate to where I have that file saved. I recommend doing this just because it's going to get difficult to kind of see in this X-ray type view. If you do this, you can at least zoom in really well on your object. So, okay, looking at this, I can see that it's kind of inset a little bit. First of all, you can see this shadow right here. So I'm actually going to make sure that both of these, if I go into the right hand view, I use tilde for this. It brings up this pie menu. It's the best way, in my opinion, to move around. So I'm going to grab both of them, go into edit mode, and then I'm going to grab this front face. I'm going to do GY and just bring it back, give it a little bit of a lip there. And then also I can see all these have a bevel. So I'm going to go add an X-ray mode. Let's give this a bevel, and then we're just going to kind of do that as we duplicate. So I'm going to do add a modifier, a bevel, and then I'm going to do 0.005 and set this to like 6. That's just going to give it just enough of a bevel to match what we're doing. And I might actually do 0.0075 maybe. Let's try 0.01. I like that. Okay. Now I'm just going to grab these with Shift Select, grab this, Control L, and then P for copy modifiers. That's going to give these this nice bevel. Okay, now we just want to make this drawer right here. So I'm going to grab this. I'm just going to do Shift D. I'm going to put it kind of in the middle. Tab in edit mode, scale it down. Make sure A to select everything. Scale it in the Z. And then SX. Just like that. And I'm kind of looking at this point right here to see how big these gaps should be. I'm just going to try to mimic that. And then I can go into this bottom face here, do GZ. And typically what I do is I know that this area right here is the front edge. I'll just do GZ and then bring it down right till it meets. And that's just kind of the easy way for me to line it up. And then we can go back and add this pull drawer here in a second. So if I go out of X-ray mode, you can basically see we got the beginning of this desk going on here. It looks pretty good. Okay, let's model this desk drawer. So I'm just gonna use let's just create a new thing. So I'm gonna hold shift and click C, and that's gonna put my 3D cursor against this plane. I'm gonna do shift A, mesh, let's use a cube. I'm gonna go into edit mode and scale it in X. Looks like it's pretty equally aligned on the center of that kind of little space. So I'm gonna do SX. You can see there's a bigger gap, so I'm giving this a little bit of a bigger gap here. And then let's do SZ to scale this down, just like that. Okay, now we basically need to make this shape. And then I need to do GY, bring that forward. Looks like it's right underneath that lip. That actually looks pretty good. And then probably, just because of knowing how furniture gets made, this would probably be something back here. Okay, now I need to match this shape, and the best way I can think to do this, I'm going to hit the, whatever way this is, / and just solo this piece. I'm gonna go into the front view, tab, and edit mode, and then let's do Control R. That's gonna put this right in the middle, and then Control B, and then I'm just gonna bring this out until it's close to where I think it should go. And then basically what I know I need is I need this point here, and I need this point here. So I'm going to go into this, go into Alt Z. It is really hard to see some of this other stuff. So if I just hide this and this and this and this, I'm gonna try to zoom in here. Yeah, now I can kind of see where this is at. So I'm gonna tab into edit mode on here. This right here, if I grab 2 and hold Alt and I grab these, I can set my pivot point to the median point, which is right here for if you don't have it bound to a hotkey. I have a thing on my mouse that lets me switch. It is amazing. I'm basically right on. That's going to be hard to see in the YouTube video, but right there is where that one meets. And then if I do Control R again and then Control B there as well, I'm basically going to bring that out right up until the point at which that, actually, let me think about it. There might be a better way to do this. Yeah, let's just delete what we just did, Control Z, and then do Control R, and then let's put this here and bring it right up to that edge. And then basically I'm going to grab each of these planes that I have right here, just going to delete them with X delete faces, and then I'm going to grab each of these vertices, so in this corner, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then in front view I'm going to do Control BV and just bring this basically all the way up. You could also do C to clamp, and then I'm just going to scroll this up until it says 12 segments up there at the top. That looks good to me. And then I don't know if this is a good idea, but medium point, let's do SX. That didn't work. Let me see. I wanted to see if I could try to make this sweeping edge a little bit better. So I think we could do, like, if we set it to the 3D cursor, and then you could probably even do proportional editing with O and play with how that works, but I really can't be bothered to do that right now, to be completely honest. So what I'm going to do now is just and I know that this isn't going to be the best solution if you were going to get up close to it, but what I did when I was practicing, I just added a solidify modifier, and then I just cranked that up, and then I know that it gives you, like, this is basically overlapping, and, you know, we could go through and change all this, but for what I'm doing right now, it is going to be fine. I'm going to right click, shade that auto smooth, and then I'm going to unbackslash and then do Alt H, put everything back. And then, yeah, that's basically that. And then I'm going to try to give it this bevel. Yeah, it actually worked all right. So we're going to do that, and that's basically going to be how we make this piece. I would probably extend and make maybe this bottom, you know, faces come up. Like I could maybe just extrude those up, but that's not going to work. So I would probably just do this, and then you could absolutely crank that thickness if you wanted to do something else. But where did my solidify? Yeah, something like that. That's what I did on my other version. Okay, that will be good enough for now. And if you, like I said, if you were gonna make more detailed shots, you could. Okay, and now what I want to do is kind of make the rest of this desk. So right here, if I just grab this, Shift D, bring it up. You can see that this is pretty far back on this long desk, so I'm going to grab this front plane, and then I'm still got proportional editing on, so I'm going to GY and just bring that back to something that kind of makes sense. That right there looks pretty good, and then I can just use this reference image to line it up, so I'm going to do GX. Looks like these panels are a little bit smaller too, so I'm going to do SX, ASX, and then set it to individual. Just shrink that down a little bit, and GX to put it right there. I'm going to grab this top face, GZ, and then just bring it down right up until it meets it. And then we're going to duplicate it. Well, I need to fix this bottom, so grab it, GZ to bring it up. Bam. Now we're going to do Shift D, R. We're going to rotate it by -90 degrees. I'm going to do GZ to bring it up. Then I'm going to also just kind of check this reference right here, GX, bring it over just like that. That looks fantastic. I'm just going to bring this all the way over, and then we're going to look at, in the render, I think it doesn't show this next panel, so I think I just grabbed this and Shift D and X, just kind of guesstimated how far from the side it was, and then, you know, just put this pretty close. That at least gives us that panel, you know, that we can use there for that. Okay, and then in the bottom, also it looks like there is a little bit of a, I think that might have been a good way to try to figure out how deep this desk should have been. Would have been like, you know, if I take this and then GY to bring it out, that point right there, you know, because I'm using this back wall, I'm assuming it goes to the back wall, but then, you know, that would be how I could for sure make that thing line up right there. That actually looks good. I'm not going to do it in this version. It doesn't make that big of a difference, but that would be how you could kind of guesstimate. That's what I was trying to say in the beginning of the video. I wasn't sure how you do it, but I would use this back wall as a reference, come out until, you know, this piece met right there. But honestly, it's not going to make that big a difference. So I'm just going to grab this, Shift D and a Z, and then I'm going to scale this in edit mode, A to select it, scale it in the Z, and basically just making this piece right here. It's not going to line up perfectly, but again, well, and also this kind of needs to come toward the ground too. So let's grab this, GZ, bring it down just like that. Okay, out of X-ray mode, I can tell from the reference image, I'm just kind of making this piece right here. This face needs to go back some, like that. And then I'm just going to duplicate it, Shift D and the Z, A to select everything, scale it down like so. And then just going to make sure that it's right above our existing piece, just like that. And then just to make that overhang, tab in edit mode, grab that front plane, then do GY, bring it forward, give yourself that nice little lip. Okay, now we're really starting to get, if I go out of X-ray mode, we've got basically all of our desk modeled out. And then this is the point at which I would start doing assets. Now, in this video, I'm going to use some from a newer company that I just got subscribed to. There are a lot of free options if you go to places like, I'd recommend the Blender Kit add-on. They have some free ones. Blender Kit is a great paid tool as well if you're wanting to make these scenes really efficiently. And again, I know that everybody watching this video might not have access to all of these assets. If you're getting to where you do a lot of interior scenes like this, especially for clients, having a lot of options to art direct what you want that to look like is a big benefit. But then if you don't have these models that look this good, I would just really focus on, you know, going for a more minimal setup. There are tons of videos out there about how to either find assets or, you know, use different libraries and stuff. So in this one, I'm going to focus on just creating the scene. And then if you need questions or recommendations on where to get some of these models, feel free to leave a comment or shoot me a message on Instagram. Okay, so another thing that we're going to do is let's go ahead and let's set up some just basic lighting for this scene. And I'm also going to save this real quick so we don't lose everything. So I'm just going to grab a place on my desktop and call this interior desk. Okay, so now we're going to set up just a little bit of basic lighting, and I'm going to really try to focus on using as little lights as possible. I want this to be pretty organic and easy to work with. So the main driver behind this is just going to be the Nishida sky texture. So just going over here, I'm going to set it to like 0.3, and then in the color, just click that little yellow and click S for the sky texture. And if we go into rendered view, we can basically see what we have here. And then I want my light to be coming from this left-hand side. So I'm just going to grab the rotation, crank this around till our light starts coming from this side. I'm also going to have the elevation be about 10 for now. And then we might even also crank this sun size. It's basically going to change the sharpness of your shadows. So if you set it to like 0.01 or even smaller, maybe 0.001. You're going to start getting these really harsh shadows, and then if you set it to like 20, it's going to really start to blur those out. So I'm going to leave it at 20 for now. And then I'm also going to set the sun intensity to be 0.35, and then we're going to also set the sun rotation. I'm looking at my older version here to be -123. And then I'm going to do Control B and then select this. So I'm basically just seeing the area here, and then I'm also going to turn this off. Okay. Now, again, this is going to be another part where I'm going to use some paid assets. So I recommend places like Ambient CG, Quixel Megascans, and other places for free textures. I have really gotten and fallen in love with Grayscale Gorilla Textures. Their Studio app is so easy to use. So I'm going to be using that to kind of create most of these textures here. So let's start out with texturing and assets. So I'm going to go here to my end panel. iMesh, which is the company I mentioned earlier, they just released their add-on for Blender, and I've been really impressed. So I can just go in here, search for chair. You get all access to their library for I think it's a yearly payment, pretty low, ends up being only a few dollars per month, at least when I did and bought their sale, so I recommend that. So what I'm looking for here is a leather chair, and I'm not seeing it here. Chair. Let's just scroll through here and find it to this one. So I'm gonna do Shift-C or Shift and click, and then just append this chair in. And then I need to make sure that I set this to be in the props, just to keep us organized. I'm just gonna grab this, scale it up, rotate it, something like that, scale it down, just checking to see if it would fit in the scale of the scene here, just like that. Okay, then we're gonna add a rug. I'm gonna also really need to do, probably I should have done textures beforehand, but I just was excited to get to this. So I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna pin this rug. Make sure you click props before you're putting your stuff in if you're using a similar tool. You can also use Polygon. There's tons of different options out there for where you get those. So I'm gonna grab this and just go to the item. And then I'm gonna make this to be in the X and Y like 2. Just kind of scale this up, bring it back here, just like that. And then let's look at our scene here. They have a laptop, so I'm gonna go down here to here, laptop. I'm gonna shift click and append it. This is just such a great workflow. These are pretty high quality textures, as in like they are, I think they're 4K typically. And so depending on your graphic card and the amount of RAM you have, it'll be just something to manage. So I'm just gonna scale this up, rotate it, just like that. And then let's just put in a couple things and we'll kind of get to the textures. So I think I did a notebook. What do they call it? Note. Yeah, I'm gonna put in right here. Which one did I do? Let's just do this one, I like it. And then again, I'm gonna click props. Grab this, just gonna scale it up to a size that makes sense. Make sure nothing stays, straight. You want to break up your rotations as much as possible. And then yeah, let's pause here for now and then kind of focus on some of the texturing. So I'm gonna bring this out and then I'm gonna grab my Grayscale Gorilla Studio just to show y'all what it looks like. Really amazing studio connectivity. So I usually go up here and then also I'm going to close my other instance of Blender just because that can mess it up sometimes. So I'm gonna close that, go over here, edit, preferences, and then go to Grayscale Gorilla, update that port, and then when I go over here, connect, and then bam, now I've got this connected. Anything I send over will be good. So I'm pretty sure what I did was typed in wood. I'm just gonna try to see if I can find the one that I used. I was looking for a painted wood or a kind of like a not an unfinished wood. I think it was one of these, oak. I may have to reference my other piece, but it looked something like this. I'm gonna go with this one for now. Well, let's look at these two. I'm gonna go with this wood caramel oak for now. And then if I just grab this one, go over here and then type D, I'll see that wood caramel oak. And then let's just apply this to all of these pieces here, just like that. And then to Control L, link materials. And then this is the point at which I would kind of like zoom in, and we're gonna get to texturing some of these later. And you can also see a lot of them are stretched. So if I have all these selected, I'm gonna click A to select everything and then click U and Q projection. That's just gonna kind of make sure that everything is at least projecting correctly, and then I can go change the UVs for each of them later. So, okay, we have that in there, and then let's go ahead and add in a floor. So I'm gonna go back to Grayscale Gorilla. Let's just do, I'm already in wood, so let's just pick a wood. Actually, they have concrete, but I really liked the way the wood texture looked in my render. So let's just go grab some wood planks that I think look good. So let's just scroll through here. I want them to be planks and not a solid. These oak planks look nice. Let's just do this, oak planks. And then I also need a wall material, and I really like their lime wash materials for the walls. And then I kind of want an olive green color. So let's just do this cloudy lime wash olive. So So yeah, now I'm gonna go into here, I'm gonna grab the lime wash material. That's gonna apply to everything. I'm also gonna apply the planks. I'm gonna tab in edit mode, U, cube project, and then I'm going to select this bottom one. Well, I need to add a new material, sorry. New material, select lime wash, and then I'm gonna grab this plane and assign it here, and then I'm gonna grab this plane, and you can see the texture is way too big. So you can do that multiple different ways. We could scale it up in the texture, which is probably what I'm gonna do. It's just easier. So I'm gonna click S over here, go to my planks and my mapping. Let's just set this to 4 for now. Kind of see where these planks are. Too much. Let's go 2. That looks good. And then let's do the same thing on our lime wash. This is typically a bigger section of wall, I think. So I'm gonna go 3. Just to where I can start seeing some detail in here. And that looks like it might be a little tight. Let's go with 2. Okay, that's the basis of it. And then another thing that we can do real quick is Grayscale Gorilla has these baseboard materials, which is super nice. So in props, well actually we'll just do it in environment. I'm gonna grab from Grayscale Gorilla, I like this Belection High baseboard. So I'm gonna send that over. And then it comes in here, I'm gonna do GZ to bring it up. I'm just gonna rotate on it's empty, GY to bring it over, GX and GZ. Where did it go? I think I'm moving the wrong thing. That's my depth of field. Let's grab this right here and then do GRZ. Set it to 90. I'm gonna tab into edit mode, scale this along its X-axis just until it's long enough to be there. Grab it. It's kind of hard to place it the way that it is, but I'm just gonna do like this for now. Do GZ. Oh, it's really difficult. GZ. There's definitely a better way to do this, but I'm just gonna kind of manually place it for now. And then GY, and then when I see it start to clip right in there, I'm just gonna bring it out. That's just gonna give us that baseboard that we need. Okay, and then also I need to apply this texture. So Control L, link materials, bam. Okay, now we're starting to get a little bit of a scene setup. So then let's go back over here. Let's go to our image editor. The first thing I wanna do is kind of match these colors. So I'm gonna zoom in here and then zoom in here, and just, you can see this one is redder. So if I go into a shader editor, this is a really good trick. A lot of times you'll never get a material that's perfectly suited for what you're trying to do. So it's really important to be able to manipulate your textures. So what I'm gonna do here is I need to shift the base color. So I usually use this hue saturation value node. 0.5 is the middle. So if I change this to like 0.4, it's gonna really shift it. So if I do like 0.48, for example, and then you can do M to hide this and see the difference. So that's the wrong way. I'm gonna try 0.52. And you can see that already right there. It might be a little strong, so let's try 0.51. 0.515. That's a lot closer already. And then what I would just do is just mute this and kind of see the difference. And then other thing we might do is you could also do a mixed color. And then that's basically gonna be, this is your original and this is your new. I might set this to something like multiply and then just play with this texture. Really trying to match this color. You could even grab this, grab your eyedropper and then pick a color from it. And I like what that did to kind of, if you M and hide this, you can see it's basically increasing everything. And then you can just play with how strong you want that to be. So if I do that, that's really making those wood textures look really similar to me. And I like how that looks. So that is a really important skill. I would definitely think you need to learn for manipulating your textures. And then we're gonna also, I'm noticing that I need a wood plane in both of these. So let's just grab this thin one that we made, Shift D, I'm gonna R to rotate it around 90 degrees. I'm gonna bring it right back up against my wall, which is right here. And then I'm just gonna go into the front view. I'm gonna line it up kind of behind this cabinet. I'm gonna go in X-ray, GX to bring this over. And honestly, I could probably just bring this all the way across and then grab this bottom one, GZ. And then I really only want this to go up to the baseboard. And also their baseboard is a super high baseboard. So let's just GZ to bring that up. And then let's grab this. Let's just scale up our baseboard here. And then I'm going to do GY, make sure it's not clipping right there. And then I'm gonna do GZ to bring that up right above. I got that big fat baseboard there. Okay, now you can see we're really starting to get to where this render was. And so now I'm gonna speed through this a little bit, but basically it's just gonna be a matter of me dropping in all of these textures or these assets, and I'm gonna kind of recreate this scene here. So I'm gonna leave it recording. As a matter of fact, I may even just put in the highlights or the recording of me doing it in the other direction. And then once we get to that point, I'm going to kind of do a little bit of a walkthrough of the final lighting setup and then go through any final tweaks that I made. And I'm going to show you just a couple more techniques here. So let's go ahead and jump to that version. Okay, this is going to be me just basically talking over the rest of this design and this build up. So this is basically where we are in our current version. You can see I've got a super ugly chair on there. That was basically the final lighting setup that I showed you how to do. I'm just using that Nishida sky texture to kind of drive all the lighting in this scene. And then really all it is a matter of doing is looking at this reference image and then trying to replicate the amount of detail that they have. That was something that I really struggled with at the very beginning, was knowing how much is too much. You can, totally fill up that desk and do a bunch of things in the room and then it just gets cluttered. But I highly recommend finding, really aesthetic images on like Pinterest or Behance, and then follow this workflow. Bring the picture into fSpy, model out the scene. It'll give you some good basic modeling skills. Try to match the lighting. There's tons of work nowadays for kind of interior lighting or realistic, photorealistic lighting. So this is the kind of thing that you can really use to build up that strength. And honestly, some client work I've done over the last several months has really helped me in this area. I love this, the colors and the matching photorealism here. So, you can just see all I'm doing in this scene is I'm using assets that are available to me to build out the image kind of as much as I can with some creative art direction. I can't remember what I was doing right here when this screen kind of stopped. So, but honestly, I would just highly recommend looking at your reference images and then seeing how much of that you can bring in to Blender. Photorealistic images with reference images as a base really helps you understand what detail is good to include, how much is too much. And then honestly, it really just helps you build out a skill set of being able to replicate anything in the real world into 3D, which is it's an awesome skill set. It's exciting, but then also it's really good. You can make a whole career out of doing it. So yeah, I'm going to pause the video right here. I think that's basically where it was at. So this is kind of like a 90% of the way there. I added in like a bead board. I tweaked some of the pictures, and the only other thing that I added was one area light kind of in the bottom. So yeah, I'll go ahead and put it up on the screen now. This is the vertical version, which is the same aspect ratio as the reference image, but then I also made this wider version, which is kind of what the client needed. So we were using these two different aspect ratios. I actually liked the vertical one better just because it could get that rug in there, and I like the colors and everything, how it kind of ties the image together. But these are the two images. And yeah, I just wanted to show the process. Like I said, the only other thing that I added after this point is that area light to kind of shine underneath the desk and kind of get some of that dark contrast out from underneath where that chair is. So I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. Hopefully you learned something. If you could, like and subscribe. I'd love to be able to keep making content, and as many views and subscribers we get definitely helps me out. Feel free to send me a message on Instagram, leave a comment on this video if you have any more questions. And with that, we'll see you in the next one.